Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras.
And I'm Natasha Kircha. Coming up in today's newscast, the United States is finally revealing its long-delayed Middle East peace plan.
For the very first time, a new Israeli docu-series shines a realistic light on what it means to live with disabilities.
And in Israel, just about everyone joins the IDF. But what happens if you're a celebrity with an established career? Well, we have the details. Finally, the long wait is over, and the U.S. Middle East peace plan is being published, but unfortunately, we are reporting just ahead of the big reveal today. We're filming a bit early, so we'll only be covering what we know so far, according to most sources. Now, for updates and more live coverage, make sure to check in on ILTV's Facebook and Instagram pages. But for now, let's take a look at what is believed to be the details of Trump's so-called peace deal of the century. Speaking from the White House to a very attentive crowd, Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump are laying out the details of the Trump administration's so-called deal of the century. And according to reports, no one is happy. The deal includes a 4-year transition period during which the PA has a chance to retract their formal refusal to negotiate. During that time, Israel will also be barred from changing the status of any territories in the Israeli-controlled Area C of Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank. As for what Israel can absorb, the plan allows Israel to annex up to 40% of Area C, while the Palestinians will control about 40% of areas A and B. The remaining area will be settled over the table, and Jerusalem will be entirely under Israeli sovereignty, but with the PA allowed to set up a capital in the Palestinian half of the city. Holy sites will also be shared. Then with this, an independent Palestinian state can be formed in some 70% of the West Bank, albeit with limited powers. The PA will be completely demilitarized, will have no control over airspace and border crossings, and it will not be allowed to form alliances with other nations. The Palestinian Authority will also have to regain control over the Hamas-run Gaza Strip, which the plan suggests will connect to the West Bank via an underground tunnel. Israel, on the other hand, will have to withdraw from some 60 illegal outposts. The question now, though, is will it be implemented? And it's a tough question to answer, because only Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and rival Benny Gantz have committed to trying, while the Palestinian Authority sees the deal as a non-starter. Still, Trump says he will not accept a yes, but answer from Israel. And Gantz and Netanyahu have already promised to do their best in implementing the plan.
All right, now, while Prime Minister Netanyahu has been in Washington, D.C. discussing the United States peace deal with the President Trump, a Knesset committee has been preparing to decide on Netanyahu's request for diplomatic immunity, but that won't be necessary any longer. Netanyahu has now officially withdrawn his immunity request, and Attorney General Mandelblit has just issued formal indictments on charges of fraud, bribery, and breach of trust. Now, if Netanyahu had received immunity, it would have protected the premier from trial against charges for as long as he's in office. But with the numbers stacked against him, Netanyahu was unlikely to receive the immunity anyway. And reportedly, Netanyahu was not too keen on the idea from the start, as he's maintained that he is innocent and that the charges against him are a circus. In fact, other officials in the Likud are also praising him, saying that the request was detrimental and should have never been made to begin with. That being said, without immunity and now with indictments, Netanyahu could face trial long before the March 2nd elections that are set to take place.
And now joining us in the studio with some details on the USLed peace plan, please welcome the founder and president of the Jerusalem-Washington Center, Gil Shoni. Okay, so before we get into this peace plan, let's talk a little bit about Netanyahu. Why did he decide to follow through and withdraw his request for immunity?
Well, I think he knew that it wouldn't look good while he's standing with Trump at the White House. And there's a discussion with the opposition leader in the Knesset going on, basically saying why he shouldn't get immunity. So I guess he wasn't interested in that split screen. So he decided that it was a lost cause anyway, and he didn't have the votes for immunity. So he decided to just withdraw it. And the focus of the day is now the peace plan, even though Mandelblit ran to give the indictment. But I think most people in media will be focusing on what's going on in the White House.
Right. Now let's talk about that a little bit. What makes this deal different than past deals?
Well, this deal is an absolute paradigm shift. It's a total paradigm shift from the Oslo Accords. And the Oslo Accords was not only an interim peace deal, but it was an industry. It was an industry that began in the 90s, which said that any peace deal must be peace, land for peace. And that's been the only game in town for the past 20 years. Any alternatives have been looked at as radical ideas. And what this peace plan did was it took like 2 years to study, to look at things from scratch, and you have a 50 or 60 page peace plan plus the like 150 page economic plan, which gives in detail what could be the parameters of a real peace deal, and it basically uproots the idea that we need to have land for peace, because in this peace deal, from what we know, or peace suggestion, what we know is there is no such thing as land for peace. All you have is basically where the Jews are, where the Arabs are, figuring out, okay, who gets what land, and that's it.
So my question, though, is how viable is this peace plan? Because it takes the Palestinian Authority to be part of these negotiations going forward. So is this a non-starter because they're not coming to the table?
Well, I think that really goes to the heart of the matter, which is that I think for Israel could have gotten what they're going to get in this peace plan even without a peace plan. I think Netanyahu could have gone to Trump 3 years ago and said, "Listen, President Trump, there's no sense in you wasting your time on this peace process, which will not lead to any results." But since we have communities and we have security needs, let's worry about that, and then what will happen at another time, we'll save that for later. So I think the question is this peace plan really a way for the Trump administration and Israel to basically say, we tried, Palestinians didn't want it, and there are consequences? Because this is the first time an administration has basically said to the Palestinians, the fact that you bash America, the fact that you call the president a dog, there are consequences. You're not going to get aid. So, you're not going to get help from us. So there's something different going on here.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us with this update.
My pleasure.
Moving on, Naama Israel has finally gotten the signatures that she needs to break free.
That's right. The 27-year-old Israeli-American's plea to get out of Russian jail has just been approved by the Moscow Region Pardon Commission, Moscow's governor, and finally none other than Russian President Vladimir Putin.
And now the Israeli Prime Minister is expected to make an impromptu trip to Moscow, raising speculation that he will be returning back to Israel with Naama herself. If that is the case, it looks like the sign saying "Bring Naama home," seen all around the country on buses and electric displays, can now be taken down. The Israeli-American has been behind bars in Russia since her arrest in Moscow back in April.
Authorities claim that she had a handful of cannabis in her checked luggage and that she was trying to smuggle it into the country. Naama had been changing planes in Moscow on her way from India back to Israel, however, and she continues to deny those charges.
Still, her sentence for the alleged drug smuggling was a whopping 7.5 years behind bars, and critics continue to argue that the punishment does not fit the crime. Israel erupted in support of bringing Naama back after her sentence, especially because the public believes that she has been used as a political pawn.
Her arrest came about just as Israel was getting ready to extradite a Russian hacker to the United States on massive credit fraud charges, and Russia fiercely opposed that extradition.
All right, moving on. ISIS is the terrorist group that instilled fear around the world and drove headlines in years past. And though we haven't heard much about the Islamic State in recent months, they've just released a new statement. And here with us is ILTV's Shanna Fold with the report. Shanna, so what's new here?
So ISIS released a very scary 37-minute long audio recording stating that Israel is now their #1 target and they're going to be focusing on Israel. It seems that the trigger point was the U.S. peace plan that was dropped today. Make Israel the main target of attacks and take down U.S. President Donald Trump. That's what an Islamic State spokesman is revealing in a terrifying 37-minute voice recording published on social media. The recording says things like, "In the coming days, God willing, you will see what harms you and what will make you forget the horrors you have seen." As well as, "Allah has gathered you in Palestine so that the Muslims may kill you." The threats come as Prime Minister Netanyahu and political rival Benny Gantz joined Trump in his office this week to go over the peace proposal. Though the exact details of the deal of the century have not yet been rolled out, It is already rejected by Palestinians who believe the plan sides with Israel and will impede a possible two-state solution. Though ISIS has been fighting a violent war with Egyptians in the Sinai Peninsula, the IDF believes the ISIS affiliate there will soon turn its attention to Israel. The IDF's chief of staff says the army needs to be prepared for the breakout of war in a very short period of time.
Well, speaking of potential terror, while presidents and kings were landing peacefully at Ben Gurion Airport last week for the World Holocaust Forum, Israel's cyber defense system was fighting off hundreds of attacks. At least 800 cyber attacks targeted Israeli aviation as leaders like U.S. Vice President Mike Pence and Russian President Vladimir Putin touched down on Israeli soil when flying in for the World Holocaust Forum. But thanks to Israel's top tech and security, the attacks coming from Iran, China, North Korea, and Poland didn't get through. The goal of these attacks? To disrupt flight paths of more than 60 planes that had very important people on board. Officials here in Israel say they had been expecting this and they're glad they planned accordingly. Just recently, Israel's cabinet chose to place the aviation infrastructure under the protection of the National Cybersecurity Authority, which is a subsidiary of the Prime Minister's office. Reports say control towers and planes have a high risk of danger and that recently hackers have become more successful in causing chaos and devastation by penetrating air traffic computers.
Now, online and mobile banking is nothing new, but Israel is now set to have its first completely online bank in operation by 2021. And here with some of the details is consumer behavior expert Dr. Vili Abraham. Thank you so much for coming in today. So what does it mean to have this digital bank?
Well, a digital bank, first of all, we have to talk about the difference between the digital services that are available today.
Right.
So when you talk about digital services, you're not really a digital bank, and that's what a lot of the banks...
It's a digital interface with a
It's just digital interface,
So
exactly.
being able to pay your bills online, basically.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, but when we're talking about a digital bank, by the way, one of the biggest banks in Israel has a digital bank, which is called the Pepper Bank. But it's not really a digital bank because according to the strict sense of the word, in order to be a digital bank, you have to have a different infrastructure and be completely disconnected from any bank. So it's something that is virtual and allows it provides a lot of benefits to consumers, like not paying fees for withdrawing cash and
also
if you
not
have an overdraft.
Well, I'm just thinking about the crazy lines that you have to wait in every time you need to make any transaction at the bank here in Israel. Yeah, which is something that I just cannot believe still is happening right now. So tell us a little bit about how this is going to affect the banking system as a whole in Israel, because I imagine it's going to turn things over completely and people might lose jobs, right?
Yes, people might lose jobs, but I'm sure that they will be doing other things behind the scenes. But the thing is that it means a lot for Israeli customers because, first of all, it means that you don't have to wait in line. It means that you don't have to, if you're ordering a check, you don't have a book, you don't have to go to a bank, get it. If you want a credit card, you get it home, you don't have to go and sign for it. And the major thing is that it will open up competition. In Israel, we have very little competition between the banks, and that's why we're paying so much money, so much fees.
Now, what does this mean for certain people who are maybe who don't have access to...
Who don't know how to use a computer?
Who don't know how to use a computer or don't necessarily have access to all this digital banking?
That's a problem. It means that the senior citizens of the country will not be able to benefit from this unless there is somebody, a family member or a significant other that can help. However, today, regular banks do offer a lot of digital services, and when you come to the bank, you can benefit from them, and there is a customer service representative
Well, I'm sure
there.
there's still going to be banks on the ground here. It's
Yes,
not like
definitely.
they're disappearing completely. It
Exactly, but when we're talking about the strict sense of the word, digital banks, we're talking about banks that will not have a physical branch.
Oh, wow.
Completely virtual.
Unbelievable.
It's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out next year. Vili, thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure.
You're either portrayed as inspiring or as the source of pity. I'm sick of it. That is what Israeli producer Asaf Greenbaum has to say about how people with disabilities are represented in the media. And that's why he has just launched a new 3-part documentary series that delves into the personal lives of people with handicaps. Check this out.
אני בת 23 ואני רוצה להיות סקסית ויפה, וזה הכול.
אז מה, אתה מרגיש?
כן.
תמונות שהייתי מפרסמת באינסטגרם או בפייסבוק היו נטולות כיסא.
אני לא מספר לפני דייטים שאני נכה.
אתה מסתיר משהו באישיות שלך.
תפריד כבר את הנכות ממי שאתה כבן אדם.
יש לנו את המגבלות שלנו, גם לכם יש.
Perfect. That's the name of this groundbreaking new Israeli docu-series. How do you have sex? When do you tell your date that you're disabled? These are just some of the questions that 5 Israelis with disabilities are asked to answer. From cerebral palsy to paralysis, the show's stars all face a range of different handicaps. But they're on a mission to change how the world views them by speaking openly and honestly about issues of self-image, their relationships, and sexuality in a way that most of us haven't seen before. The show's creator and producer Asaf Greenbaum is handicapped himself and says this docu-series is all about changing the narrative that exists around the disabled community. All right, well, joining us now in the studio is Noam Gil Shoni, one of the stars of Perfect, the 3-part Israeli docu-series that explores the lives of people with disabilities in a way that you've never seen before, from sexuality to self-image. We have a lot to cover today. So first, tell us a little bit about your story. You were not always handicapped, right?
No, I was injured during my military service, the Second Lebanon War on July 2006, crashed a helicopter, an Apache helicopter, and became disabled all of a sudden.
Right, so this was something that happened out of nowhere.
Out of the blue. Just woke up one day, I don't even remember that night, woke up one day in the hospital, and then you just start the process of accepting the new reality.
Right, and this is a reality that I can only imagine took a very long time to come to terms with, right? But today there are still certain things that I think that people within the community of people with disabilities have issues speaking about. There's a taboo around sexuality, relationships. What made you choose to be a part of this docu-series?
Actually, I wasn't really psyched to just, open all these intimate issues and all the secrets, you can say, because even normal people, you can say, are not used to talk about the most intimate stuff, like sexuality, sex, relationships. But I think this is the most important thing about this series. Is we're not trying to inspire. We're not trying to make people feel sorry for us. We just want them to have a glimpse of what it feels like to live as a person with disability in today's society. So everyone from the characters, I have to say, I think I'm the least interesting one in the. All the characters are super interesting.
I'm sure that's.
I was so intrigued when I saw it. I mean, the series is amazing, really.
So. I mean, how has your life or your outlook maybe changed since you started participation in the series?
First of all, it was super interesting for me to see all the other characters, hear their stories, hear their issues, how they cope with society, how they cope with the intimate things. But mostly, I think it's a mirror. This TV series is a mirror for society, and it's very important for us to show normal people how they cope with people with disabilities.
Right.
I mean, they treat us differently because they categorize us as a person with disability, so they think we're probably miserable, we're probably helpless, we're probably don't know how to enjoy life, they need to feel sorry for us. This category. But all the characters in the TV series, I mean, I think it's something we bring to the table, our disability. I mean, it's part of who we are.
Yeah.
I mean, the name of the series, it's called Perfect in Hebrew, but in Hebrew it also means complete. I mean, it comes from the same
right,
verb.
That's interesting.
It means complete, so it's not just perfect. It means we are complete. I mean, everybody has issues. Some have issues with how they look, some with disabilities or...
Yeah. Well, for you, I mean, listen, this series delved into a lot of very, very personal issues, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
What for you was the most difficult and most important for you to talk about? Was it relationships? Was it sexuality? Or was it just how you view yourself? Or how others view you?
I think, first of all, our physical disability is something that people see. So, and whenever you walk into a room, you attract attention because of your physical disability. What was important to me in the series is to show that, okay, I have this physical disability, but I'm bringing a lot of other things.
You have a personality also.
I have a personality, and I'll say even more than that, because of my disability, I know how to appreciate the small things better than able-bodied people. So we bring to the table different things, but we don't want people to think that we are inspiring. We don't want people to think to feel sorry for us. just accept us as
You're part of this society just like everybody else.
exactly.
The good and the bad, right? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We
It's a
cannot wait to
pleasure to
watch
have
Wow,
this.
you have to watch it. I'm not saying because I'm participating. Just
No, we're gonna
We're
watch
definitely
it. Don't
watching
you
it.
worry.
We're definitely watching it. Noam, thank you so much.
thank you guys.
It looks so good.
I know, I cannot wait to see
my
this
gosh.
series. All right, at the age of 18, most Israelis are obligated to join the army, but what happens to young Israelis who are famous pop stars or massive social media influencers? Well, ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here with the answer.
Hey guys, so that's a great question. Are you exempt from going into the army if you already have a big and successful career? Well, the answer is basically no. As an example, Israeli superstars Noah Kirel and Adi Biti are heading to the IDF, but apparently they are getting that celeb treatment. For those who don't know, Noah Kirel is an 18-year-old singer, actress, dancer, and TV host that has literally taken over the country with her catchy singles, her insanely professional music videos, and of course her hit TV series. And Adi Biti is just as well known for her singing career, which she started when she was super young. So according to reports, it was made extremely clear that any officer who is not their direct officer is prohibited from contacting or taking pictures with the stars. During the recruitment, they will receive a special escort to supposedly prevent bullying from other soldiers. And there's apparently a chance the two will stay in separate bunks from other soldiers and that it will be fenced off.
All right, well, that's definitely not what other soldiers have to
at all.
experience when they enlist.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder how that's going to hold up with their fellow soldiers.
Right. Well, most soldiers have to do everything together, like sleeping in one big room and using shared showers and bathrooms. However, the report also said that the two will have separate showers as to not share one with the fellow soldiers.
So where are they enlisting? What unit will they be going into?
Right. So the two are heading to the IDF band unit where they will continue to sing. And as for Noah Kirel's famous boyfriend, Jonathan Murgy, who we have spoken about in the past, he is set to star in the newest dancing unit that will apparently accompany the IDF band. So, you know, they're set to be the IDF power couple, which again, I'm not sure how that will go over with the rest of the soldiers, but I guess we'll have to see.
All right, well, listen, you know, there's no way that they won't get some backlash for this. You know, I get that the IDF is trying to accommodate and be as cautious as possible because, after
they
all,
have to
they're
be.
super famous, right? But special treatment might lead to more bullying and you know, difficulty with her peers.
I don't know. I imagine that people might be excited about...
Some yes, some no. First of all, are you a fan? Are you not a fan? Or, you know, so
that's true.
Just before, all 18-year-olds do have to enlist, like we said before, boys for 3 years, girls for 2 years. However, there are some exceptions, one of them being if you're married.
Right.
Let's take Israeli model Bar Feli as an example. She got married to get out of her enlistment, which the Israeli people will never let her forget.
Yes.
So we should definitely be super proud of these two young pop stars for enlisting and showing the younger generation.
Yeah, that they're serving Israel proudly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, again, Bar Feli managed to kind of get away with that, and she's still a huge star here, so that
Right.
worked out for her.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see them going in. Thanks for joining us, Emmanuel.
Of course.
All right, let us take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be cool and cloudy with lows around 49 or 10 degrees Celsius. And then tomorrow, get ready to whip out the umbrellas again as the chance of rain returns with a high of roughly 61 or 16 degrees Celsius. Now, before we go, let's take a look at what is going viral in Israel on tubing.
I love that song. He's playing Amelie in the
Yeah,
middle.
so what's really cool is that is a look at a soldier who is actually playing the piano in a public train station. All the train stations around Israel, you have pianos and anybody can play, and that soldier is clearly super talented. I
Super
would
great.
never be able to do that, but good for him.
Anyway, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.46 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras.
And I'm Natasha Kirchuk. Thanks so much for watching.